Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of The Absolute Authority on Film. I am Brian Cutter, the Absolute Authority on Film. And if you haven't watched our first episode, I talk about how that is a misnomer, a joke name, so to speak. I am not an absolute authority on anything, including film. We're all out here just kind of guessing. Just rolling the dice and seeing what pops up. Because as I said in my first video, that screenwriters don't necessarily know what's going to sell. Filmmakers don't necessarily know what's going to resonate with audiences. It's all a big guessing game. With that in mind, what I am going to tell you as a creative myself is, if you finish a script, if you get a script made into a film, if that film gets put up anywhere, even on YouTube, you're winning. You're fucking winning because your stuff is getting made. You're getting finished. Even like I said, just finishing a script, just finishing an outline, that's a win. Accept it. Take the W. Because in this industry, so many of these things get written, never get made, that just finishing one is a huge accomplishment. And you should absolutely be proud of that accomplishment. And brag about it on social media. Tell your friends, tell your family. Say, hey, I wrote this thing. It's done. So, we're going to continue on. Last episode we talked about outlining your script. Today, we're going to talk about taking that outline and turning it into a completed script. Your next step is to write the thing. Anybody who is a writer will tell you the very first thing you write, the very first version of the story that you write is going to be shit. It's going to be absolute garbage. It is what's known as your vomit draft. You're just vomiting words onto the page to try and tell this story. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Don't think that because, oh my God, I wrote this script and it's garbage. It's nothing like what I wanted it to be, what I had in my head. That's okay. That's okay. That's normal. All of us do that. It is literally part of the process. So don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. It is completely 100% normal. We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about what comes after that. Let me roll it back a little bit here. Did you do your homework? I know you're like, homework? There was homework for this? Yes. You were supposed to outline something. Did you outline something? If you didn't, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Life happens. Procrastination happens. I will tell you, one of my biggest issues is executive dysfunction. Sitting down and actually starting the thing, whatever it is, even this fucking podcast, is such a Herculean effort for me. And I have such a hard time getting anything started. The bad part is once I'm started, I'm fucking flowing, man. I'm getting it done. Go ahead and outline the thing, and then we'll talk about how to turn it into a script. So that's what we're doing today. Without further ado, your best friend in writing a script is screenwriting software. The reason I say that is because it formats everything for you. You don't have to worry about setting up margins and page breaks and all that other shit. It's all done for you. All you have to do is sit down and write. I personally use Fade In. I do not get any kind of kickback from them. I think they are a wonderful software. They're a little upstart company. I think it's like one person that runs the entire thing, does all the work. They are fantastic. And they are also very accessible on social media. If you hit them up on, I know they're on Blue Sky. I think they're on Threads. I don't know if they're on Twitter anymore or not. But if you hit them up and you have a complaint about the software, they're very responsive. I tell people all the time, I am the hardest working lazy man you will ever find. I have no issue working hard, but I absolutely hate working harder than I have to. So don't work harder than you have to. Use a screenwriting software so you don't have to format everything. So we're going to turn to the computer and we're going to look at my script Moonlight as it is written on Fade In. And yes, that's a great thing about Fade In is you can put in, it's a JPEG. I made this logo in Canva and then I just inserted it into this as basically as clip art. We're going to talk about the different parts of a script, of the screenplay format. And then we're going to go into some of I'm going to talk about the 4 main ones that you're going to use, and then I'm going to talk about a few others that you might use here and there, but not as often. First line right here, it says exterior, open field, day. That is called your scene heading, also known as your slug line. I don't use the word slug line because I don't like it. I just don't like it. I call it a scene heading. So that's what it is. It's a scene heading. That is telling you where your scene is taking place and what the lighting is. The first 3 letters there, exterior, EXT. You're only going to use one of 2 things right there. EXT or INT, exterior or interior. If you have a character that is going from inside to outside, like he's walking out the front door of his house, you can do that one of 2 ways. You can start off with a scene inside the house and then cut to exterior, front door, blah, blah, blah. Or you can do it where he starts off inside the house, walks out the front door, gets in his car, drives off. That's the scene. You can do it either way. It works fine. You don't have to overthink this, okay? That's your interior and exterior. Your next few words, and it should be just 1 or 2 words, maybe 3. You don't want to make these super long, okay? Open field. That's where it's taking place, okay? So it could be exterior open field or interior John's kitchen, interior garage, or exterior beach. Any one of those things. And you can be a little more descriptive, like you can be specific about the beach. Like you can say exterior Laguna Beach. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just telling your reader where it's taking place. And you want to be as brief but as descriptive as possible. And then the final thing there is day. There should be only 3 things you use there. You're going to use day, night, or continuous. Don't use sunrise, sunset. That's not telling you when it's taking place. That is telling the filmmaker what the lighting is supposed to be. If it's day, it's supposed to be bright. If it's night, it's supposed to be dark. If it's continuous, it's after the previous scene. So those are the 3 that you use there. Day, night, continuous, that's it. Don't use anything else there. The next set of things I have here are called action lines. This is where you are describing the scene. And you can put in the time of day. You can say it's sunrise in this. At sunrise, so-and-so is doing this. This is also where you introduce your characters for the first time. The actions that your characters are taking. This is your next format that you are going to be using, and that is your character name. And that is who is speaking. That's who's saying the line. Because right under that is your 4th thing, and that's your dialogue. And those are the words that that character is saying. These are your 4 main ones that you're going to use all the time. Like, you cannot build a script without these 4 things. Exterior open field day. Hundreds of plate-armored warriors on foot face off against thousands of creatures who appear to be human, but don't quite look or move correctly, as if someone tried to play God but phoned it in. The shadow spawn. Their eyes glow red. The plate-armored warriors, a coalition of wolfkin and humans, are armed with swords, shields, spears, and bows and arrows, their faces set with grim determination. In front of them, a unit of cavalry, and in front, a lone warrior, the leader of this army. This is Astriana Redclaw, 20s black female, warrior princess of the Redclaw clan. She is a short wolfkin with black fur wearing shiny silver armor. She addresses her troops in a voice that rings out across the battlefield. And she says, "Hear me, people of Celestria. Today the Shadow Army seeks to overpower us and continue on to our homes, to our families, to our people. Are we going to let them?" That's all I'm going to read. But you can kind of see how this is flowing. So in my action lines, I have several paragraphs of action lines right here. And one thing that you want to do, and again, if you don't do this in your first draft, that's okay. But this is how you want it to end up after several edits, okay? You want each paragraph to be 4 lines, maximum. You can do less. Here I have 3, here I have 2, here I have 1. That's fine. But you don't want to go any more than 4 lines. If you get to 4 lines, find a good place to stop. You know, maybe if I had put right here, their eyes glow red and so do their mouths, or something, you know, red light comes out of their eyes and their mouths, I would have popped that down to the next paragraph so it didn't go over and create a 5th line there, okay? But that's the formatting you want to use. So that's real easy in this program. All you do is you type out your lines, hit enter, and it goes to the next line, to the next action line. How do you select where your formatting is? Excellent question. Right over here on the upper right hand corner, you have them listed out. You have your formatting listed out. Scene heading, action, character, parenthetical. I'll get into that a little bit. Parentheticals and the transitions are the ones that you aren't going to use as often. I'll get into those in a little bit. But what I want to point out is, you notice where it says scene heading is 1, action is 2, character is 3, etc. On your keyboard, I have a number pad on the right-hand side, okay? If you hit Control and one of those numbers, it corresponds to the numbers up here. So you can just hit Control 1 for scene heading, Control 2 for an action line. Write out your entire action line in 1 paragraph. That's okay. If it takes up a whole page, that's fine. This is your first draft. You don't have to worry about that right this second. The first draft is you telling yourself the story. You're just trying to get the story down on the page. Don't worry about how it's formatted necessarily. Right now, on the first draft, your job is just to tell yourself the story. Hold on, because the Air Force is Air Forcing. Oh, they are launching another sortie over the house. I'll leave this part in. Right over the house. When you first introduce a character, the very first time you introduce them in an action line, there's a couple of guidelines you want to follow. First of all, the very first time you introduce them in a script, you want to capitalize their entire name. And then you're going to put a little description of them, what kind of character. One thing that a lot of people, a lot of newer writers get into a little too much is that they describe the characters physically. Don't. You don't need to worry about what they look like physically unless that physicality has something to do with the plot. If they have a missing limb and that factors in later to either the plot or the character flaw that they have to overcome in the third act. Remember, we talked about that. That shouldn't be their character flaw, though. That's just something that hinders them overcoming the character flaw. So you're going to describe the character themselves, what type of traits they have. Not physical traits, but character traits. I give her name, Astriana Redclaw. Her age, 20s. Your age is always going to be a decade. Teens is okay. But it's going to be 10s, 20s, 30s, etc. It's always going to be a decade. Don't put their exact age, 35. Number one, it has nothing to do with the character. You're just trying to establish an age range so that the actor knows how they're going to act. So her description is warrior princess of the Red Claw clan. So that tells you a bunch about her. Number one, that she's royalty. Number two, that if she's in charge of this army, she's got to be a hell of a fighter, right? And she's only in her 20s, and all of these soldiers are willing to follow her. So obviously, she's got to be a badass, right? All you need is a little bit of description, and then everything else can kind of be extrapolated from that. And then I do have a physical description here because it does play into her character flaw later on. One thing is you always the capitalization of the character and the introduction of who they are, not necessarily what they look like, but who they are as a person. Then we move down to the dialogue. Now, one thing, another guideline you want to follow is you introduce a character before you give them dialogue. That is a general rule. It is not something you have to stick to all the time. You can have another character mention their name before you actually introduce the character. You can have them say something off screen or off camera and then introduce them later on. There's a lot of ways you can play that, but as a general rule, anybody that you're going to have on screen, you're going to want to introduce their character before you give them anything to say. We go in and she's finishing her patent speech, and then the army responds again. And this time it says army chanting. That's called a parenthetical. You're going to hear a lot of screenwriters say, don't ever use parentheticals. Use parentheticals. I don't give a shit. I use them all the time. They're fine. They don't hurt anything. You need to know when to use them and when not to, and that's based on experience, but don't listen to anybody telling you don't ever use them. I'm going to tell you something. Here's a secret with screenwriting. You're going to get people who will tell you, always do this or never do this. Ignore that. Ignore that completely. That is absolute bullshit advice. Anytime the word always or never is used to give you screenwriting advice, ignore it completely. It's garbage. Always and never are lies. They are absolute lies. Do not believe them. So, with the parenthetical, what the parenthetical is when you are giving a character an action while they are saying their dialogue, but it's not enough to write in an action line, if that makes sense. It's a word or two, like chanting. So that's what you're going to use parentheticals for. It's to describe an action that your character is making while they are saying their dialogue, but it's not enough to put as an action line by itself. Groovy. Moving on. You have Eclipse and Tessa fighting. They have some dialogue back and forth, and Eclipse says some shit that gets under Tessa's skin a little bit, but she had already received the advice that whenever she starts to get angry, especially in combat, to remember this one happy memory that she has of her father. And I use the transition. She's going from fighting with Eclipse to imagining in her head that memory. And the next scene is describing that memory in real time, like it's actually happening, but we already know it's a memory. So I use this transition. It is cut to. So if you hit Control 6 on your numpad, that's your transitions, and it's cut to, which means it's a smash cut. It is going directly from one scene to another. There's no visual transition, no nothing. If I'm a filmmaker, which I am, believe it or not, I might put in a visual transition, or I might just do a smash cut. As the screenwriter, I left that up to the filmmaker. I wrote it as a smash cut. You can write it as a visual transition. That's fine too. But just be aware that the filmmaker may go the opposite direction, and that's fine. That's part of the collaborative process, and the filmmaker's job is to translate what is on the page to the visual medium for the audience so that the audience can sit there and watch it and see it happen. Your job as the screenwriter, and this is something that a lot of people are not going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you as a screenwriter and filmmaker, that the jets are jetting like motherfuckers. One thing I'm going to tell you as a screenwriter and filmmaker that not a lot of people are going to be able to tell you. You have to know your audience when you're writing a screenplay. Your audience is not the audience sitting in the theater. You're not writing it for them. You are telling the story to the filmmaker. Then it is their job to translate it to the visual medium so that the audience can see it. Let's go ahead and get into this because this is one of my biggest pet peeves. You're going to hear the phrase when you're screenwriting, directing on the page. And I'm going to tell you what that means. What that means is that you are writing in camera directions into your screenplay. So for instance, you're going to write something like "we see" or "we hear." No, the fuck we do not. Nobody is we. Or you might write something like "the camera pans" or "the camera drops down to..." People that write that way are writing for the audience in the theater. That's not who you're supposed to be writing for. You're supposed to be writing for the filmmaker. Remember, you are telling the story to the filmmaker, to the director, and to the actors. You are not telling the story to the audience sitting in the theater. For one thing, it's a waste of your page. It's a waste of words. That you could be better telling the story or better telling something about the character. Also, and again, this whole thing, all of this is a your mileage may vary kind of thing. But me personally, directing on the page is a huge pet peeve. It's okay if it's every once in a while. If like once per script you put in a "we see" or a "we hear." I'm going to be like, all right, yeah, I can ignore that. I can just push that to the side. That's fine. But I once read a screenplay where the screenwriter put "we see" and "we hear" as the beginning of every single action line. Like every single sentence in the action paragraph started with "we see" or "we hear." Just describe what the characters are doing. Let the filmmaker, the director of photography, let them set up how the camera is going to move through that scene. That part is not your job. Don't do somebody else's job for them. Number one, because you're not getting paid for it. And number two, because you as a screenwriter, unless you have been to film school and unless you have made films and you know how cameras operate and you know how to frame a shot, you don't know how to do that job. If I'm remodeling my bathroom, I'm going to hire a professional to come in and do the electrical work. You are not going to tell that electrician how to do his job. Now, you as the customer are going to say, yes, I'd like an outlet here, a light fixture here, and an overhead fan. That's what you're going to tell the electrician. And that's also what you're going to tell the director. You're going to tell the director, look, this character does this thing. They pull out a sword. They begin fighting. That is fine. That is just describing what the character's actions are. You are not going to tell your electrician how to wire those lights up or those outlets, just like you're not going to tell the filmmaker how to set up the shot. You're going to leave that to them. You're going to trust them to do their job. And you're going to trust them to do it well. I'm going to say this too. If you are writing a script that you intend to shoot yourself, all of that is out the window. Write it for yourself. You're telling yourself the story. You're telling the filmmaker the story. You as the filmmaker, write it however you want to. This is advice for writing a script that you intend to sell to a studio or to have a filmmaker look at and hopefully film it. If you're the one doing it all, do it however you want to. Whatever works for you, make it work for you. If you want to write "we see" and camera directions and all that, do it. Knock your socks off. But if you are trying to get this script into the hands of a professional filmmaker, don't. And again, this is my personal pet peeve. I know I'm not the only one who has this pet peeve. Some filmmakers don't care. Some filmmakers will just read it over and ignore that part. But I'm telling you not to do it in case you get a filmmaker who that's their pet peeve. And also because, again, it's wasted space on your page. It's wasted space that you could be writing something better. Also, keep in mind, again, this is your first draft. Write all the fucking we sees and we hears and camera directions you want to put in there. That's fine. This is a first draft. And it doesn't matter how much page space you take up. And it doesn't matter if it's going to piss off the filmmaker, because this is your first draft. You're going to go through several editing drafts after this, and we're going to talk about that. All I'm doing is telling you what path I'm taking, and hopefully that will work for some of you, or elements of it will work for some of you. And I recognize that it's not going to work for everybody, and that's totally okay. Anyway, you guys have a great day and carry on smartly.